On today's lesson, I'm going to teach you why your top two tennis priorities are likely out of order, how you can fix that, and how you can play better tennis. So let's get started. At this point, we should all know that a majority of points end in an error. So what should your top priority be when you step onto the tennis court and you're competing in a match? Obviously, to reduce your own errors. Now, I'm not suggesting you push. I'm not suggesting you never come to the net and never play aggressively. All I am saying is that your top priority by an absolute mile should be to make balls. You should only be trying shots that you think you are going to make 90% of the time. Now, I'm not going to spend this video teaching you how to be more consistent. I have plenty of videos like that, but obviously aiming higher, aiming more towards the middle, playing with more spin, and playing at a reasonable pace are all things you can do to help reduce your own errors. So if the game of tennis is all about errors and our first priority is making sure we reduce our own errors, well then what would the second priority be? Obviously, that is forcing errors from our opponent. So here's where I think your priorities are out of whack. My top priority as a player and as a coach is to make sure I reduce my own errors and at least make the ball. My distant second is to force errors from my opponent. I think a lot of players out there that I watch have it backwards. Their top priority is they're always trying to force errors from their opponent, but they're not giving as much attention as they should to reducing their own errors. So I want you to think of a sliding scale. On this end, all of your focus would be on reducing your own errors, and on this end of the scale, all your focus would be on forcing errors. Where should you be on that scale? Generally speaking, at a minimum, it's probably like 80-20, but a lot of that depends where you are in the court. So if I was behind the baseline from back here, where should that attention be? I think it should be like 95% over here towards reducing my own error and maybe 5% on forcing an error. So when I'm in this part of the court, there's not a lot of good that can happen, right? So I just want to make sure I'm making the ball. Sure, if I was going to try to force an error from this part of the court, I could play with height, depth, and maybe some heavy spin. But the reality is from right here, all my attention is reducing my own error. As I step up in the court and I've got a forehand from three-quarter court, it's probably not 95-5 anymore. It's probably 80-20. Now, most people I watch would probably be 80-20 the other way. You step up in the court right here and you think this is go zone, like you're just going to start attacking, hitting winners and making errors. It's not going to happen. You're going to make errors yourself. So as we get closer to the net, that sliding scale shifts a little bit where you're still obviously trying to make the ball, but you have a little bit of more of your attention on forcing errors. Now, like I mentioned earlier, one of the best way to force errors without ruining objective one, which is make the ball, is to play high, heavy, deep with spin. The second way I like to force errors is by coming to the net. Just your court position, number one, you're taking time away from them. But when you come to the net, you'll be stunned how often people try silly, silly shots because you're in position for a volley. They will just miss the passing shot. So those are the two best ways to force errors from your opponent without missing so much yourself. Now, besides the fact that a lot of people have these priorities flip-flopped and their attention is too much on forcing errors, there are also two hidden thoughts or fears that lead people to forget objective number one, which is simply making balls. The first thing is people literally are trying to hit winners. I know so many players who are inside the baseline just a little bit, and they are literally trying to hit a forehand winner from here. It is my belief that most of your ground stroke winners should be completely accidental. When you get closer to the net and you've got volleys and overheads, it makes sense to try to go for some winners because you're so close to the net and you have angles. But chasing winners is the greatest way to forget what objective number one is, which is making balls. That leads us to the second subconscious fear or threat, and that is the fear of getting attacked. Now, I understand that. I don't want you to get attacked. I don't want people coming in on you, putting pressure on you, and forcing errors. I get all that. I'm also not super worried about that, especially below a 5-0 level. So what I see a lot of times is someone's behind the baseline, the opponent might hit a good ball in the corner. You're out here. You could just slice it high through the middle. If your only objective was to make the ball, you would throw it up high, slow, down the middle. Now, why do people from out here try to slap balls or hit low slices? Because they say, I have to make it and I have to make sure I don't get attacked by my opponent. Now, again, I'm not saying I want you to get attacked, but what I'm saying is you can never forget objective one. So if I'm in trouble, it doesn't matter. If I got a ball above my head, I'm not thinking I have to make it and make sure my opponent can't hit a swing volley. I'm just thinking make it. And I have to understand why I got in this situation and why I'm behind the point anyway. But I'm not just going to give you a free point and forget objective one because I'm so scared of the threat that you might execute on me. So let's take a look at a D1 match and we're going to watch it through my eyes so you can see when I think people have deprioritized making balls, they have overemphasized forcing errors from their opponents, or even worse, they're missing because they're so afraid that they might get attacked themselves. All right, so let's check out a few points here. We can watch the player on the far side survives that shot, and then we get a +1 air. Now, if we're looking at the player on the near side, she's up inside the baseline, but priority one is make the ball. Right now, I think she is trying to make it, obviously, but I think more of her intention is on trying to play offense because she's slightly inside the court. For me, it's a backhand. Again, she should probably just roll this cross court, but because she goes for a little too much, she ends up making a poor swing. Now let's look at the server on the far side. We get another +1, and she rips this ball deep. Now, again, this is where I think most players get in trouble and flip the priorities. She's got a forehand. It's not particularly difficult, but she's a little bit behind the baseline. I think she sees open court and she is either trying to hit a winner or trying to force an error, but it's from a part of the court where I don't really think it's smart. Her main objective should be to control the ball, play solid to a simple target. Maybe she forces an error, but at the end of the day, she's still going to make the ball. So now I want you to see where she does a really good job of this. Now she's on the near side. She gets a very similar opportunity. She hits a quality rally ball, and boom, what do you know? We get an error. So you don't always have to try so hard to force it. They will happen naturally. But when you're behind the baseline like this, even on a ball that's relatively simple, your main priority is making it. Your distant second priority is forcing an error. So right here, she picks a really good target. She hits a quality rally ball with depth, and that ends up being enough to get what she ultimately wanted, which was an error. This is a really interesting point here. Awkward return and a slice in the net. Now this goes to the fear of being attacked, and I totally understand it. She's in a very awkward part of the court right here. She's nervous that if she just slices this in routine, she's going to get passed. And honestly, she might. But I'd rather have her make the ball and make the opponent come up with a shot. Maybe she can slice this middle and close the angles, but she's so worried about getting passed and having her opponent hit a winner that she decides to try a difficult slice and just loses the point. Look at this return. I mean, we know missed returns are the number one culprit. Should you be trying to make a return or attack off a first serve return? She should be going middle, medium speed. Instead, she's going for decent pace. And honestly, I know she pulled it wide, but it's definitely not a center target. Let's watch the player on the near side here. Good priorities, values making the ball, and it's good enough to win the point. So let's look at the serve. We have a good return. Look at the +1 right here. She's on the baseline. Her opponent hit a good shot. She's just trying to roll this cross court. She's not worried about hurting her. She's not worried about getting attacked. Right here, awkward slice. She's not worried about getting attacked. She doesn't have to keep this low. She doesn't have to keep it deep. She does have to make it. So the way she plays this looks like she's just trying to make the ball, which again ends up being enough to win the point. All right, so priority one by a mile is reducing your own errors. Once you get solid and consistent at that on a regular basis, then you can focus on objective two, which is forcing errors from your opponent. Remember the two viruses out there, trying to hit winners and the fear of getting attacked. I promise you, if you are playing someone your level and you are solid, you are going to do great. So keep these priorities in order and you're going to be winning more matches in no time.